Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a narrative that is, frankly, going to absolutely blow your mind. We're diving into the works of Zecharia Sitchin, specifically looking at this astonishing alternative timeline detailed in his book, The Cosmic Code. In this version of history, ancient humanity wasn't just born out of natural evolution. No, we were genetically engineered as a proxy workforce by beings from another world. And believe it or not, it all builds up to a localized, completely catastrophic event in 2024 BC. We're going to look really closely at the specific claims made in this text to understand exactly how this highly controversial, fascinating historical outline actually comes together.
Based entirely on Sitchin's chronology, we are going to trace a staggering 450,000-year epic. We'll be moving through 6 defining eras. First, the origins of the Anunnaki. Second, the creation of Homo sapiens. Third, the Great Deluge. Fourth, the Pyramid Wars. Fifth, the rise of Sumerian civilization. And finally, number 6, nuclear fallout and its legacy. So let's jump right into Section 1, Origins of the Anunnaki, a dying planet and Earth's gold. To really wrap our heads around this timeline, we have to go way back, 450,000 years back to be exact. And according to the text, this story doesn't even begin on Earth. It starts on a distant planet that is facing total ecological collapse. The atmosphere of this world is eroding away, and life there is looking at a slow, inevitable extinction. This brings us to a couple of crucial definitions you'll need for this timeline. Nibiru is this distant, eroding planet, and the Anunnaki are its inhabitants. Driven by sheer desperation, a deposed ruler named Alu Alu manages to escape in a spaceship and actually finds refuge right here on Earth. And what does he find? Well, he discovers that Earth is rich in gold. In this narrative, that gold is the exact material needed to protect and repair Nibiru's failing atmosphere. That one single discovery literally sets off this entire massive chain of events.
That discovery triggered the rapid, large-scale industrialization of Earth by the Anunnaki. About 445,000 years ago, a leader named Enki lands and sets up Eridu Earth Station 1 to extract gold from the Persian Gulf. But production kind of falters. So another figure, Enlil, arrives around 416,000 years ago, wins command of the entire Earth mission, and shifts the main mining operations all the way down to southern Africa. Fast forward to 400,000 years ago, and they've already established 7 fully functional settlements in southern Mesopotamia. We're talking a spaceport, a mission control center, the whole metallurgical shebang. The mined ore was shipped up from Africa, refined in Mesopotamia, and then shot into orbit to be loaded onto spaceships arriving from Nibiru.
Moving on to Section 2, Creation of Homo sapiens, the mutiny and the mines.
You can imagine, extracting gold from southern Africa was grueling, literally backbreaking work. According to the text, 300,000 years ago, the Anunnaki who were slaving away in these gold mines finally had enough. They mutinied. To solve this massive labor crisis, Enki and his half-sister, the chief medical officer Ninurta, took a really drastic step. They decided to conduct genetic manipulation on ape women. The result of this experiment? The creation of primitive workers, which is us, Homo sapiens. So, according to this, humanity was genetically engineered specifically to relieve the Anunnaki of their manual labor. Over time, these humans were relocated to Mesopotamia, they were given the ability to procreate, and they started to multiply.
Now, this dynamic created a huge ideological split among these powerful figures. On one side, you have Enki and Ninurta. They were the creators, and they actually wanted to elevate humans of Anunnaki parentage to rule in cities like Shuruppak. But on the flip side is Enlil, the mission commander. As the global climate warmed up about 100,000 years ago and the human population boomed, Enlil looked at these unruly multitudes with growing disgust. He was just enraged by them, to the point where he actively began plotting mankind's total destruction.
Which leads us right into Section 3, the Great Deluge, a secret impending calamity. Enlil finally got his perfect opportunity to wipe out humanity about 13,000 years ago. Now, in this timeline, the biblical flood wasn't just rain, it was actually a natural cosmic event. As the planet Nibiru passed really close to Earth, its gravitational pull triggered an immense planet-wide tidal wave. Enlil saw this coming and made the Anunnaki swear a strict oath to keep this impending doom a secret from mankind. But Enki broke that oath. He tipped off a man named Zeusudra, who you might know better as Noah, and instructed him to build a submersible ship. So the deluge completely sweeps over the Earth while the Anunnaki just watch safely from their orbiting spacecraft.
When the waters finally recede and Enlil comes back down, he is absolutely shocked to find out humans survived. Seeing their resilience, he kind of throws his hands up, finally relents, and grants the surviving humans implements and seeds. This is what kicks off human agriculture.
Following the flood around 10,500 BC, the Earth was essentially carved up into specific zones of control, almost like a giant real estate deal. Noah's descendants were allotted 3 main regions. Mesopotamia was made habitable again and claimed by Enlil's foremost son, Ninurta. The Nile Valley was reclaimed by Enki, but the Sinai Peninsula, that was strictly held back by the Anunnaki to serve as their brand-new post-flood spaceport. They also set up a new mission control center on Mount Moriah, which is the future site of Jerusalem. As you can probably guess, this highly rigid territorial division is going to set the stage for some incredibly devastating conflicts.
And that brings us to Section 4, the Pyramid Wars, battles for the space facilities.
That uneasy peace I just mentioned, it completely shattered in 9780 BC, plunging these factions into a bitter, multi-generational rivalry. Enki's firstborn son, Ra, also known as Marduk, divided his dominion over Egypt between Osiris and Seth, but infighting totally fractured them. Seth ended up seizing and actually dismembering Osiris. Decades later, in 8970 BC, Horus avenged his father by launching what's known as the First Pyramid War. He forced Seth to escape and seized the Sinai Peninsula. Well, this massively alarmed the Enlilite faction led by Ninurta. They were absolutely terrified that Enki's descendants were going to end up controlling all the vital space facilities on Earth.
That fear hit a boiling point in 8670 BC, when the Enlilites launched the Second Pyramid War. This offensive was huge. The text explicitly states that the victorious Ninurta literally went in and emptied the Great Pyramid of all its advanced technological equipment. This war was so devastating that it forced a major peace conference convened by Ninurta. The original division of Earth was reaffirmed, and the rule over Egypt was officially transferred away from Marduk's dynasty to that of Thoth, all in an attempt to just restore some kind of balance.
Section 5. Rise of Sumerian Civilization. Kingship granted to mankind.
Out of the ashes of these brutal pyramid wars, a new era of relative peace finally emerged. This allowed the Anunnaki to grant mankind some pretty unprecedented advancements. Suddenly, in 3800 BC, urban civilization just explodes in Sumer as the Anunnaki re-establish their ancient golden cities. By 3760 BC, there's a massive power shift. Mankind is formally granted kingship on Earth, with the city of Kish serving as the very first capital. But of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. In 3450 BC, Marduk tried to proclaim Babylon the gateway of the gods. This leads straight to the infamous Tower of Babel incident, where the Anunnaki actually confused mankind's languages just to frustrate his coup. Despite all that drama, civilization kept right on blossoming, eventually leading to the installation of the very first Egyptian pharaoh in Memphis in 3100 BC.
Now for our final chapter, Section 6, Nuclear Fallout and Legacy, the Fatal Century.
Unfortunately, that period of stability just couldn't last. By 2371 BC, ambitious human rulers and rebellious gods pushed Mesopotamia into a very dark era that the source material literally calls the Fatal Century. Sargon of Akkad launches his massive empire, kicking off centuries of warfare, shifting capitals and proxy battles involving major figures like Inanna and Naram-Sin. The real turning point, though, arrives in 2024 BC. The timeline violently accelerates here. Marduk, leading his followers, marches on Sumer and crowns himself in Babylon. The fighting spreads deep into central Mesopotamia, and the Holy of Holies in Nippur is defiled. Then Marduk's son marshals his Canaanite followers to capture the spaceport. And this prompts Enlil's faction to take completely unthinkable, apocalyptic countermeasures.
I mean, the sheer magnitude of the claims made on this next slide is just astonishing. Enlil demanded strict punishment for the uprising. Enki tried to oppose it, but his own son, Nagel, actually sided with Enlil. The text specifically clearly states that the great Anunnaki formally approved the use of nuclear weapons. Nagel and Ninurta then completely obliterated the Sinai spaceport and the errant Canaanite cities just to stop Marduk's forces from taking them over. What we are talking about here is an authorized, deliberate, ancient nuclear strike.
And the immediate aftermath is exactly as horrifying as you'd think. Sitchin's timeline details that the very next year, in 2023 BC, the winds caught the fallout. A massive radioactive cloud was carried eastward, blowing directly into Sumer. The text paints a picture of total, undeniable ecological collapse. People dying a terrible death, animals perishing in the fields, the water becoming completely poisoned, and the rich soil turning completely barren. The great, blossoming civilization of Sumer was left lying prostrate, literally wiped out by radiation poisoning.
From the radioactive ashes of this wasteland, the timeline presented in the text finally comes to its conclusion. With Sumer destroyed, the focus and the legacy of civilization passes directly over to the lineage of Abraham, a figure who, according to the text, had actually actively participated in the military campaigns leading up to this exact event. At the age of 100, he begets a legitimate heir, his son Isaac, carrying the human story forward into a completely new era.
Which brings us to the end of Sitchin's chronological epic. From mutinies in ancient gold mines all the way to a localized nuclear strike in 2024 BC, it presents a radically different, almost science fiction-like view of the past. So, if the rise and fall of our earliest civilizations were truly shaped by extraterrestrial genetic manipulation and apocalyptic proxy wars, it leaves us with a massive, provocative question to ponder: just how much of our ancient mythology is actually forgotten history? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today, and whatever you do, keep questioning what you know.